Number 20, we're asked to solve. So the first thing I would always check if you're trying to solve is if you can factor this. If not, then you'd have to apply the quadratic formula. So if I look at the left-hand side, if I was trying to factor this would be method number 3. I would make a factor list of 2, the last number, and unfortunately the only factor pair, since it's prime, is 1 and 2. And if I add the numbers in my list, because that's a plus sign in front of the 2, I get 3. This will never give me 7. So that means I'm going to be backtracking here and choosing quadratic formula. So for quadratic formula, I need to identify a, b, and c. A is always the number in front of the x squared, so that's a 1. B is always the number in front of the x, so that's -7. And c is always a constant, so that's 2. So my quadratic formula, x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's plug this into our quadratic formula. So I have x equals negative b just means the opposite of b. So if b is -7, the opposite of +7, plus or minus the square root. So kind of open up a longer square root symbol, b squared. So I'm actually going to take -7, which is b, and square it. Remember, when you square a number, it's always positive. So that first number inside the root should always be positive. So that's 49 if you square -7. So minus 4 times a times c. So I'm going to open up 2 parentheses to actually plug in a and c. A in this case is 1 and c is 2. And that's all over 2 times a, and a is 1. So continuing to simplify, we really need to simplify underneath the radical first. So I have x equals 7 plus or minus the square root. You can simplify this quicker than me. I always write that first number inside the square root symbol, 49. Then I decide on the sign, looking at my 3 numbers, -4, 1, and 2. If there's only one negative and I'm multiplying, that gives me a negative. After I decide on the sign, I actually multiply 4 times 1 times 2, which is 8. And that's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. So this is equal to 7 plus or minus the square root, 49 minus 8, now you just need to subtract, that's 41, all over 2. Then from here, ask yourself if there's a number that divides all 3 whole numbers. The 3 whole numbers are 7, this number here, the 1 in front, and the 2. There's no number that divides all 3 of those. The next step would be to decide whether you can simplify the square root by making a factor tree. However, 41 is prime, so there's nothing I can do to simplify that. So this actually is my final answer. So I have x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 2. And you can actually write that as 2 solutions. If you separate your 2 solutions, leave some room here. I have x equals, first one I'm going to use a plus sign, so 7 plus root 41 over 2. And the second one would be using the subtraction sign, 7 minus root 41 over 2. So you can separate them or you can leave them condensed.